Hello, everybody. I'm waiting for the system to add everybody to the broadcast before we actually officially start. I think what I'm going to do now is turn on people's microphones. Arthur, I just turned your microphone on.
Thank you.
And Christine, I just turned your microphone on.
Thank you.
Gary, I've turned yours on. Hushman, you've got two.
Thank you.
I'm turning one on, Hushman. And Jean, I see you here. Hello. I've turned your microphone on as well.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. What I think I'll do, we're going to wait another minute or two because I think a few more people are going to join us. And once we're sort of really ready to get started, I'll turn everybody's microphones off while I give the PowerPoint presentation, which will take maybe 25 minutes or something like that. If I leave everybody's microphones on, there'll be a lot of background noise, so we have to turn them off. And then when I'm done, I'll put everybody's microphones on again so we can talk together, so that we can discuss the materials and talk about sort of what we want to do, and answer questions. Wendy is here. Hi, Wendy. I just turned your microphone on. And I see Nikki. Let me see. Nikki, I just turned yours on as well. So we've got 8 people, and I think we may have a few more coming. So let me wait a bit longer. Gary, how are things in the Ukraine?
Thank you. A little bit rainy today, but other than that, it's a nice fall.
That's good. That's good. We've been running 32 centigrade lately here in northern Indiana. It's been really hot, 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're hoping that will end soon.
Well, we're getting about, we're supposed to have about 20 this time of year, but we've been having lots of days pushing 30, so it's quite unusually warm.
Yeah, or at least we think it's unusually warm, depending on global warming, of course.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if we'll have anybody else join us right offhand, so anybody have any opening questions or comments before I turn off the microphones? You can hear the background noise, that's why I'm going to turn them off. Okay, well, I'm going to turn off the phone so I can do my presentation here. And I think that turned everyone off except this one. Okay, so I think I've got everybody's microphones off. Well, now I'm going to run through this presentation here. The purpose of this 4th meeting of the 4 this weekend is to talk about establishing departments for the Wilman Institute, and within the departments, sections, and even possibly within sections, what I'm going to call teams, people to develop individual courses or new groups of courses. And of course, we want to also talk about the purpose of the departments, the size of the departments, how many departments, chairs for departments, coordinators for the sections, and issues of how they're going to get appointed and what they're going to do and how much they'll get paid and all these kinds of issues today. So that's basically what I have to provide to you in this PowerPoint. To give you an overview sort of where we stand right now. The Wilman Institute, of course, has been going on since 1995, so this is year 23. And in that period of time, we've been continuously developing courses. Currently, we have a little over 110 courses that are on a rotation of sometimes they're offered once a year, sometimes once every 2, sometimes more like every 2 or 3 or 4 years, so that we're currently running around 55 to 60 courses a year. And of those, we're probably creating 3 to 5 brand new courses every year as well. We have about 80 faculty. I sent emails out to, I think, 62 or maybe 64 faculty regarding these meetings. and I will now have had about 30 people, I think, in one or another of the different 4 sessions, which is pretty good. In addition to the 62 to 64 faculty that I invited, we have about 14 people who teach the marriage and relationship and family courses, and I didn't invite them because they already have a department, and they're already coordinated through Suzanne Alexander, who's the chair. So I didn't feel a need to invite them to this particular series of meetings. So altogether, including them, we're pushing up close to 80. And by the way, we're about 40% female, 60% male in terms of our faculty division, gender ratio, and in terms of PhDs, I haven't checked, but we have a goodly number of people with PhDs, and most of the rest have masters, and we have some people teaching who don't even have masters but have relevant expertise, and therefore we're really delighted to include them as well. The big development, of course, in the last few months has been this articulation agreement that we signed on May 17th with the United Theological Seminary of the Twin Cities in Minnesota, and they agreed that 6 of our courses, 6 specific courses, could be available to their students for credit, and they in turn would pay the tuition, would reimburse the tuition for them to take those courses, and other courses that students would want to take could be considered on a case-by-case basis. And that's been working out fairly well. It's actually being conducted fairly informally. They are supposed to want a transcript of a course, I'm sorry, a syllabus of a course before accepting it, but they've just been accepting them anyway. And actually, if anything, we need to tighten that up and provide them with proper syllabi and things anyway. So I'm hoping with increase in staff, we'll be able to do that more professionally. We sent a letter to the National Spiritual Assembly reviewing our situation in June. The Woman Institute has a board of 9 members. We met after the articulation agreement was signed and talked about it and charted our way forward. The National Assembly was pleased with the direction we proposed, but wanted to send a letter to the House of Justice, so we provided some talking points to the National Assembly in July, and I presume they've sent the letter either in July or August, and we're now awaiting for guidance from the House of Justice about the Woman Institute's further development and direction. I don't know how long it will be before we get that, but we're assuming a month or so, and we'll have more guidance, and when we receive that guidance, we'll let you know, of course. We're under the impression, fairly sure of this, that the House of Justice does not want degrees in Baha'i studies established that would then be accredited. Therefore, the Woman Institute cannot pursue accreditation of a program at this time. So instead, we want to pursue the goal of becoming the online Baha'i Studies department for anybody who wants such courses. Universities, professional schools, seminaries, anybody who wants a course or 2 on the Baha'i faith on some topic, we want to be in the position to provide it to them, and we want them to feel confident that we can provide them a course that is academically rigorous. It may be academically rigorous and still be from a Baha'i perspective, and we need people to understand that as a Baha'i institution, we're not treating the Baha'i faith as a 100% neutral subject. We are inevitably treating it to some extent from the perspective of believers, but that I think is generally understood to be acceptable, because after all, we are an agency of a religious body. Some people won't feel that that's adequate, but that's the standard way courses on religion are generally taught. You can't completely avoid an insider perspective, and we will certainly want to minimize overt things, but I think people need to understand that's where we're coming from. Most likely, we will, after we receive the guidance from the House of Justice, pursue a campaign to obtain more articulation agreements, and in addition to formal articulation agreements, no doubt there will be many informal arrangements as well, where one Baha'i wants to take a course and the university will say, just send us a transcript and we will accept that course for their degree, and they may not pay us anything, but we'll just have to do fundraising and cover our costs that way. The cost for teaching a course in general is pretty high. well, it's a lot lower than it is for universities. We're charging people $75 base price for a 7-week course, and of course 20% less for senior citizens, students, and pioneers, so that's $60. And our expenses, when you include the higher faculty honorarium and our staff, is probably running closer to $150 to $200 per course instead. So basically, we're charging students half price, and we're covering the rest through fundraising. Last year, we had a goal of $55,000, and we raised $70,000. Our goal this year currently is $100,000. We suspect that we will need to raise that goal and have a major, ultimately a 7-digit fundraising campaign over more than 1 year in order to raise the money we need to really be established properly. And any kind of major effort to obtain more articulation agreements will also involve some sort of attractive prospectus that we can produce in large quantities and distribute primarily probably to Baha'is and to LSAs for them to take to their local universities, but also obviously anybody who wants to consider our prospectus, we'll want to send it to them. We've already been increasing staff. We now have, in addition to me, I have essentially 4. I'm getting a 5th person, an intern, starting next week, I think, through my university that the Wilmette Institute is paying for. And we're going to have to do a lot more faculty training and a lot more training of the learners in how to use our Moodle course delivery platform and how to go about doing the courses. So those are all things we're working on. So that's the overview. In terms of departments, the first email that I sent to everybody listed 7 departments, and I immediately got some suggestions from people saying we probably should start out with fewer departments that would be easier to train, you know, a smaller number of chairs, and these larger departments probably are an easier way to get something started, and then we would possibly split into smaller departments later, larger number of departments. Similarly, departments will have sections. These terms are based on what my wife's university, St. Mary's College, works. They have, for example, my wife teaches in the Modern Languages department, and the Modern Languages department has a French section, an Italian section, and a Spanish section. So I'm using that language, and their sections have coordinators just as the departments have chairs. So those are the language that I'm using. This is coming from that particular setup. So we may start out with a certain number of departments, maybe 4, and possibly no sections at first that will be formally organized, and then gradually we'll organize sections as well as we go. But I can only do so much at once, and so many department chairs and sections to be trained and set up and organized at once, I think. Especially since we're not completely sure how this will work, and I'm sure, even though I've now got a 3-page memorandum of understanding for chairs and coordinators, my guess is that we may have to throw out a chunk of it and rewrite it, because as we gain experience, of course, we'll have to figure out how this works. So we'll start with fewer numbers of departments, and then and some sections, and then continuously add. We've been giving courses now identifiers using a 3-letter designation and then a 3-number designation. Most of you haven't seen this, but we have actually created this entire system. So, you know, Religious Studies 101 would be an example of an identifier. And we're going to use a system whereby 100-level courses are perhaps too short for credit or too simple for credit. We're doing more and more 4-week courses and 2-week courses, and you really can't do them for credit easily. A 200-level course would be our standard 7-week course that has not yet been upgraded for credit, and then a 300-level course would be a 7-week plus course that is available for undergraduate or graduate credit. And I should add that the way we can do credit is we have the students, after the 7 weeks is over, during the 4-week grace period, they have to write a paper, and that paper is worth about 40% of their grade. So it's really the 11 or 12 weeks that we give them most of which is for the paper and the research that goes into the paper that makes the course accreditable. That also means we can continue operating our current 7-week system with fairly basic materials for our non-credit students, and then add a few readings and some additional writing every week for the credit students, and then a lengthy project at the end to make these non-credit courses into credit courses. We're still not sure where all of our courses should go. Baha'i spirituality could be in religious studies, it could be in what we're calling the relationships department, it could be various places, for example. Probably science and religion courses go under the philosophy sort of area, though it could also go in various places. Where courses should be is something that we'll just figure out as we go, and of course consultation is the key for doing that. So here are the possible departments. I've mentioned 7 before, and here's a way of dividing them into 4, and you can still see the 7 within these 4. One of the departments that I mentioned was religion, philosophy, and theology, which really has kind of 2 areas to it, which would be sections. Baha'i texts and history was originally listed as 3 departments. One department that covers the writings of the Bab Baha'u'llah and Abdul Baha, which requires a certain amount of Arabic and Persian and sort of Islamic studies, Middle Eastern studies kind of expertise. The authoritative texts of the Guardian and the House of Justice, which are in English, don't require those skills as much. And then the history and biography section of courses, some of those also require some familiarity of Middle Eastern languages and Middle Eastern context. So those I had originally set up as 3 departments, but here we could do it as Baha'i texts and history as a single department. We have probably 30 courses altogether that we offer in that field, but not all the same year, of course. Religion and philosophy has about 14 or 15 courses. Similarly, we offer a lot of those courses. Relationships, which has basically 2 divisions, sections. One is relationships and marriage preparation, and then marriage itself, and then parenting and family. You can see a progression here from the individual going through courtship, marriage, having children, and raising them in these particular courses. And we have 14 faculty and probably 9 courses a year and 20 or so courses either existing or under development in that department. Then there's a very broad department here of applying the Baha'i teachings, on the one hand applying them to the world and to society, which is the social change one, applying them to the Baha'i community itself, which would be the development of the Baha'i community, and then applying them in very specific ways through art or literature. So that would be a sort of 3rd section of this department, or possibly 3 separate departments eventually. I listed these originally as 3 separate departments. So originally I proposed a religion department, a religion, philosophy, theology department, scriptural text department, authoritative text department, history and biography department, relationships department, and then those 3. So those were the original 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 departments. I think probably 4 departments is more manageable for now. I've got about halfway through my presentation now. Of course, we would also have sections, and the sub-departments I mentioned in the previous slide could be examples of sections, but as people propose new topics, we could easily start out with one person finding some friends, constituting 2 or 3 or 4 people who would be a team who could develop 1 or 2 courses. The other team members might not necessarily even be faculty yet. They could be starting out just simply as part of the team. I would have to get anyone who's going to be faculty has to be cleared through the U.S. National Assembly, who of course checks with the person's own National Spiritual Assembly for clearance. So we always have to get them cleared. Except non-Baha'is, we can have non-Baha'i faculty, but we haven't yet completely figured out the procedure we're going to follow with them. I think it's just, we'll experiment and see how it develops over time. So people could start out proposing a course or 2 together in a new area. They could then become a section, might eventually become a department. That's exactly what happened with relationships. We started out with a couple of people doing 1 course on marriage, and now we have 14 people, and we have 2 sections, and we have quite a remarkably large department. So teams can do these kinds of things. If you don't even need my permission to start contacting people about having them serve on a team. You could do that without that. If you wanted to invite them to be involved in a course, you can always invite them to be involved as what we call a discussant. A discussant is someone who's in the course not as a student and not as a faculty to provide their expert advice. We don't have to get discussants cleared. So we can always add people to courses as discussants, but then of course eventually if the person is interested, we could then invite them to be faculty. Right now we're up to 55 to 60 courses a year, and it's difficult to add more courses, but I think we'll be able to solve the 2 bottlenecks relatively soon. We're developing better ways to market larger numbers of courses so that we don't bombard people with too many emails. 52 courses a year, remember, is 1 per week, and that would be 1 email a week right there. But now with our News at a Glance, we can announce just by sending links to people, 10 different things a week. And so we're at the point now where I think we're marketing more effectively every week to more courses than just 50 or so a year. Also, staffing limitations. We only have so many people who can help you develop a course, but as we train people how to create courses themselves, our staff will be in a position to provide support instead of doing the bulk of the work. And that also will mean that our existing staff will be able to go farther and handle larger numbers of courses. Now, what will the chair of a department do? What will the coordinator of a section do? We do have a memorandum of understanding that I've developed in collaboration with Suzanne Alexander, who's chair of the relationships department. And since she's been functioning as a chair for several years, now she's officially a chair, we sort of went over what she does and developed the memorandum of understanding based on the experience that she has. So we actually do have, from the experience of that one person, a document. And like I said, no doubt it will continue to change. It's a 3-page memo of understanding, and the next 4 bullet points are basically the preamble at the top and summarizes the whole thing reasonably well and reasonably succinctly. The chair, of course, coordinates the overall running of the department within the Wilmette Institute. This would be true of the chair of the English department at university as well. The chair acts independently, consulting with the director as needed to choose, I can't see what I've got written here because of other stuff, to choose, organize, create, and help deliver online courses in a subject concentration area, whatever that subject is. The director works closely with the chair works closely with the director to select subject matter, section coordinators, and lead faculty, and the chair does strategic thinking about the direction of the department and its relationship to the priorities of the faith. And there's, like I said, three pages, half of which is an elaboration on these main points. The other half of the document, this sort of covers sort of the other half of it right here. How are we going to create chairs or coordinators, and what are they going to do, and what are the logistics? Initially, the director, i.e. me, will appoint the chairs, and I think probably we'll want to do a little 4-month shakedown period to see whether it's working out for everybody, and then continue on from there. Right now I'm thinking that the term of chairs and coordinators will end Resvon 2019, and they'll always be for 2 years. So we'll do a 2-year terms. After 2019, Resvon 2019, perhaps we'll have the chairs elected by the faculty, or perhaps we'll have the faculty elect in terms of electing, make a recommendation which the director can accept or turn down. I think that's the way universities work too. Universities don't always accept the chair appointments of the department. Of course, we're going to have to compensate chairs and coordinators for their work in some way, and the amount of compensation will depend to some extent on how much work that particular individual feels they want or can do. I'm not sure right now whether all chairs will be doing an equal amount of work. It might be some will feel that they just simply need to organize department meetings twice a year and spend a few hours here and there talking about the department with the director and doing a little bit of organizing, and maybe it's only 20 hours a year. I don't know. On the other hand, I think some chairs are going to want to spend 100 hours a year or even more working on their departments, and I think it'll have a lot to do with their enthusiasm and how comfortable they are. And so it's hard to say how much to compensate people if some people are working 20 hours and some are working 100 hours. So I think what we'll do is think in terms of blocks of time, and we'll assume the person's going to need at least 1 or 2 blocks of time, and then if they want to do more than that, we can just talk about it. Whereas a block of time would be, let's say, about 16 hours for about $400, and if the person's doing 2 or 3 blocks of time, then it would be, you know, 400 times 2 or 3, or even 4 if a person's needing a lot of time. And then that amount of money per block would also increase over time as the person's experience increases and as their involvement becomes more important. We can then actually increase the amount of money per block. So it's kind of like a consulting arrangement that way. And I'm not expecting people to count every minute or second or even necessarily every hour, but to be able to make a general estimate of the amount of time so that we can you know, provide fair compensation that doesn't break the bank, because the Wilmot Institute only will have so much money. I don't know how much, 10,000 maybe altogether, that it can pay out every year for the chairs and coordinators. But obviously there's a huge potential for the Wilmot Institute's growth if we have active chairs who are actively coordinating things, thinking about their departments, thinking about how it can be expanded and developed, thinking about additional faculty, thinking about additional topics that should be covered, thinking about how to cover the existing subjects more effectively. When you think about it, this is something I've been doing, and I haven't had the time to think about all the topics completely. The more people who are doing this, the better. And it's just going to be, I think, much better for the Institute if a lot of this work is decentralized. Possible directions. I have this one, I think, one other slide, and then we'll be done with the slides. Obviously, new sections and new subjects for each department. Existing courses can be split. I know the science and religion faculty are thinking of taking that course and doing a course just on evolution in the Baha'i faith, or a course just on cosmology in the Baha'i faith. You can easily see how one can take some courses and split them into multiple courses. The economics faculty similarly have been thinking about ways of taking their one course and making it 2 or 3. And that's a very important way of diversifying and fine-tuning the Wilmot Institute's offerings. More advanced courses have a lot of potential. I would love us to get to the point where we could get together all history majors or all economics majors together in an online seminar once a week, where they could share papers and talk about their field. There's so many fields that Baha'is can go into where they don't know any Baha'is who are in that field, or perhaps there's one person they've heard of and they can be in touch with them by email a little bit. But think of the power of bringing together the Baha'is who are majoring or have just finished a major together with each other and with Baha'is who've completed that field in a systematic educational environment. It's a huge advantage, not only for the development of the faith, but for Baha'is to be able to bring Baha'i insights to their fields. So I hope we can work on that eventually. Brainstorming about the nature of Baha'i education, nature of Baha'i scholarship, obviously is something departments would be doing as their faculty are interacting more. Departments can work on course quality and maintaining quality controls as we figure out what kind of quality standards we need to maintain, and that will have a lot to do with accreditation standards that we have to become more familiar with. Right now we're doing 1 to 2 web talks a month, and I'm coordinating all that. But if departments can tell me, you know, we'd like to have, you know, one web talk a year in our field, and we're hoping to have this person or that person do the talk, that would be really helpful, because then we would have a wide, we want to maintain the web talks of having a wide variety of topics, a diversity of subjects, and a diversity of people, some of whom are future faculty or future discussants for our courses as well. I'd love to see us get to the point where departments organize mini conferences that might last an afternoon with 3 speakers and questions and answers between each one. We can do that easily over this GoToWebinar system. We want to do more web publishing, and departments could coordinate that. I'd like to get to the point where the Wilman Institute would have a little bit of money every year it could give out for research grants, and that is very ambitious, and I don't know whether we can do that anytime soon, but that again would be something the departments would have to help us out with, so that ultimately the Wilman Institute staff is providing more support and less coordination and direct organization and direct, you know, accomplishment of the work. Right now, Candace is often creating half of each course, which is, she's not a content expert, so, but the faculty aren't often providing the content or aren't sure how to do that. And as the faculty get better at this, she can be more concerned with whether the courses meet accessibility standards, and they are balanced, and we have materials from women as well as men, and we have easier and as well as harder readings and that kind of thing, so that we can support a range of students and represent diversity. Finally, a little bit about the materials that are available to the departments for working together. We now have a Google Education Suite, which means we have on the web the possibility of creating an infinite number of folders. We want each department to have a folder so that all the faculty in that department have access to common folders. We want every course to have a folder so that all the materials in that course, in addition to being in Moodle, would be sitting in a folder. Everybody who is faculty of that course can go see that folder and can look at the materials. As we develop new courses, we can create folders where people can share documents and can edit the documents together. Right now, when people are creating a new course, they're emailing drafts, and you can't remember whether this is the 3rd draft or the 5th draft of something, and what happened to Unit 6, and what readings did we have in Unit 6, here's Unit 4 in this email. It gets really maddening trying to keep track of things when they're all being sent by email. And if we had common folders and document sharing through Google, which we now have, train people how to use it, I think course creation can be done much more smoothly. And I may need help from faculty to set all that up, because I don't know how to do it myself. We now can give people email addresses ending in wilmaninstitute.org, and eventually I think everyone's going to need that, though I don't even have that right now. Well, I do have one, but I don't use it. I need to start using it. This GoToWebinar system that we're using today is very easy to use. You just need the username and password and know how to do about 3 different things, and you can use it yourself very easily. So we want to start teaching people how to use it so they can use it in their own courses, and departments can use it for meetings. We also have a Zoom system, so people can use Zoom or GoToMeeting, depending on which one will be available at a particular time. And we just hope that people will start using these materials together to create courses, to collaborate together, to develop Baha'i scholarship, to develop new educational ideas, educational resources, so that the Wilman Institute can not only move forward, but also can be a shall we say, a force for change in the community, a vehicle for helping to develop the educational side of the Baha'i community. So I think that's everything. Let's see. Yep, that was my last slide. So I'll get out of that. And now I guess I will turn people's microphones on. Don't do anything yet because they're not on. Give me a second. And I will click and see if I can turn them on all at once. No, I have to turn them on individually. So Arthur, Christine, Gary, Hushmand, Jean, Nikki, Andra, Soveda, Trip is on the phone. Soveda's is on, I think. Actually, I can't get Soveda's to go on. Wendy, I'm turning yours on. That's everybody's I can turn on, so people be careful about their background noise. I see I've got Soveda's on now. Okay, I've got everybody's microphones on. So we can all hear each other and talk together. And what questions do people have? Please say, you know, this is Jimmy, and here's my question. And then we know who's talking. It's ambitious, isn't it?
This is Saveda. Thank you, Rob. Wow, it's really exciting to see the evolution of the Wilmette Institute. Hopefully we'll be a fully fledged university one day. It's very exciting. Yeah, inshallah. The social change department seems to be particularly large and encompass. Do you know how many courses it encompasses at the moment?
I haven't tried counting it up. It's got a lot of topics, most of which are one course a year. So,
I see.
For example, I could easily lump together as a section for governance and world peace, World Federation, concepts of governance in the United States, and the course on world peace. And so we've got 3 courses there, which are kind of different people who don't really know each other. But you could make that a section in a way, but I don't know whether there's a lot of advantage making it a section because I don't know how easily you all could collaborate. On the other hand, like I said, we have 2 people who teach 1 course in economics, and we could easily teach at least 2 or 3 courses on economics. So I'm guessing that department has maybe 15 courses a year, 10 to 15 courses a year, and maybe a total of 30 in rotation, something like that. There is a sort of obvious section in that, I should add, and the obvious section is the courses on climate change, sustainability, and agriculture. And that is a group of courses with some common faculty across all 3 of them, and we're talking about 8 faculty involved in those courses. So that's like a little subgroup with 3 courses that right now are offered, all 3 of them are offered annually.
It just struck me that the work of the chair of such a department would be a little more challenging because there's such disparate courses. The nature of the courses is so disparate and requires a little bit more expertise as opposed to, say, Baha'i history and, you know, authoritative text. Not that I take it lightly, but, you know, if you have a working knowledge of Arabic and Farsi and are steeped in the writings and history, it's something you can manage more easily. So anyway, just something to, thank you, to think on.
I think you're quite right, and I don't know there's an easy solution to that problem either. So it's just something we'll have to, you know, figure out. It might very well be that it's easier for me to be chair of that, and then I have various sections that gradually develop with their own section coordinators, and then everybody else is just individuals who report to me. We may have to do it that way. I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. Maybe I can find one person who's got time and energy and wants to go call everybody and meet them all by phone and talk to them and hold a meeting. And I don't know.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay.
Rob, can you hear me?
I can, Sandra.
Okay, I didn't hear you unmuting me, but I unmuted myself. So I'm just wondering, other than the courses I'm teaching, what is there in the arts department?
There's the course that Anne is also running on the Introduction to the Arts. That's it right now. Arts and Literature, I first called it Arts, and then I decided that I should call it Arts and Literature because the course you're offering right now on creative writing is really a literature course.
Right.
And if we did a course, for example, on exegesis, that would be even more specifically on literature. So that's a kind of section. And there are probably a lot more people we could get involved in the arts. We have Peggy, for example, who's doing music, but right now we don't have a place for music because we're not teaching the course that included it. But, you know, I think we probably could branch out and continuously increase our offerings where that's concerned. If nothing else, we could even have 2 or 3 or 4 people who are faculty of the arts, and the main thing they're doing is organizing web concerts for the Wilman Institute and web art exhibits for the Wilman Institute and that sort of thing, which would be another way, not really courses, but another way of having faculty doing arts through the Wilman Institute.
Marjan Naru would love to be here now because, you know, that is one of the reasons that's one of the things she envisioned in terms of the Wilman Institute, or why she wanted to be involved, seeing it as a venue for that kind of sharing. And I think that's a great idea. When you're working in the arts, you need those kinds of forums rather than just learning experiences. I mean, learning experiences are important in developing craft, but also those kind of venues are really important, and virtual ones are essential these days, you know, online forums.
Who are you talking about?
Marjan.
Oh, Marjan. Yes, Marjan. Yes, God bless her soul.
Mm-hmm.
She was a marvelous, marvelous faculty for us who passed away a few months ago. Yeah, I would love to see. We need to think about how we want to do these things. It may very well be that a lot of the topics the Wilman Institute can foster are not best fostered through courses. They may be best fostered through events, online events.
Well, I think that in terms of the arts and the practice of the arts, that's very true. And what I would suggest right now is just getting well, we've got Peggy as a musician, get a visual artist on board, and you need someone in each of the arts to really spearhead development, I think, in this section.
Yep. I think that's true. I think that's true. What else? What else? As you can see, that's very different from what Soveda does. So again, that shows you the difficulty of having one person sharing the whole thing.
I think they're really 2 separate departments. Ultimately, Rob, you know, I don't know how they can go together.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's why I originally had them as 3 separate departments. But it might very well be that we may need to start the organization at a higher level, because we may not be able to easily start them as separate departments. Or maybe we start them as sort of mini departments and just have them, maybe sections is a good way of doing it. And some of these other topics are just sort of, I don't know. We'll have to figure that out.
I think that the idea of going from the micro to the macro makes a lot of sense to me, and makes it less administration heavy. I mean, people who actually know the subject working to envision the expansion of the presentation of the subject, and that way you develop into departments.
Correct. And there's only so much I can do as a person with expertise in history and a little bit in scripture, and in religious studies. There's only so much I can do to envision the expansion of these other areas. I can't do it. It's not my. No one should expect me to do it, really, because no one person has the expertise in all these different areas. I have to encourage others to do it, and that's exactly how the marriage and relationships program grew so large. Suzanne was able to picture the whole thing and recruit the people to do it, and did a good job. And now we have a very large and successfully functioning department.
This is Nikki, Rob. I have a kind of question and kind of just a thought. Earlier in your presentation, you talked about the courses in the courses for credits that are being developed, and that there are 6 basic courses. Are they all in the same department? Is there, perhaps we can think about, you know, as a department, which of the courses that we have now could be the first to be prepared for credit?
Good idea. The 6 that we listed are, let's see if I can remember them. There's an introduction to the Baha'i faith, so like Baha'i 101, which we figured would be good for non-Baha'is. There's Baha'u'llah's Revelation, a systematic survey. So in other words, Baha'u'llah's writings. There is Baha'i theology, so that's like the metaphysics of the faith, that's 3. There is the course on the Baha'i faith and social change, a brand new course which looks basically on how the Baha'i faith is applied to change the world, changing society. So that's 4. Then there is a course we haven't yet taught, which is, we hope will start in April, called The Baha'i Institutions, the Community, and the Individual. So that's the first course, sort of the overview course on change within the Baha'i faith.
Okay.
Right? So that's 5. And what's the 6th one?
It wasn't spirituality or anything like that.
No, it wasn't. I can't remember what is the 6th one. The 6th one already exists too. But you can see what we've been trying to do. We're trying to do an overview of the revelation, an overview of the theology, an overview of the faith itself, an overview of social change, an overview of Baha'i community.
So that would be at least 2 in social change department.
In that larger department, yes, because one is the society part and the other is the community, Baha'i community part. What was the 6th course? It'll probably come to me after we've closed this down. I don't remember now. But you get the idea. We were trying to think of what would be a comprehensive treatment of the faith overall, with the different aspects of the faith. Now I'm getting bugged by this and wonder if I can find it quickly for everybody. How would I do that?
Rob, I have one question. This is Arthur.
Yes, Arthur.
When I had a meeting at the World Center a few years ago about ABBF and IEF, one of the points that came up in the discussion was that we've got good programs in ISGP for students and graduate students, but there's very little accompaniment on how to be a Baha'i in professions once you go beyond those levels. And it seems to me that one dimension of what you're leading WI towards is that element of accompaniment. What is it to be a Baha'i in these different academic fields? What are our unique perspectives? What are the traps to avoid that are common in academia outside of it? And so I think some of the workshops, forums, and so on, I think it's a dimension to keep focusing on as this goes forward, to see how can we develop critical mass of accompaniment in these fields where it has been lacking, where people are jumping into the field and are sort of lost in it because, as you say, they don't know who to talk to, they don't know have anybody footsteps to follow, and so on. I think it's a very important dimension to continue to take forward.
Right. I think in general that's one of the problems we have with Baha'is going to college. They go to college, their understanding of the world expands vastly, and they're trying to understand it from a Baha'i perspective that was formed when they were 16 years old. So they simply can't see what the Baha'i answers to all these new questions are. And one of the things that we can do, and one of the things ABS is doing, is the ABS is creating these working groups where groups of people get together to study texts together, for example. And we have the religion and society working group using a Moodle course as a platform for their discussion. I would love to see these working groups forming through ABS to use our platform and even propose courses for themselves or for other people. And we could help organize groups of people who could become working groups as well, so that they could meet at ABS, they could use our platform for continued discussion, and we wouldn't have to charge them to take this course. You see, we could just simply add them to it, and they could just simply run with it themselves, because we don't have to do really much to support it. All we have to do is add them to Moodle, the Moodle system, and then add them to the course and let them do the rest themselves. So that's one thing I hope we can do more of. There's a lot of potential collaborations out there, and for that matter, Arthur, if there are ways EBBF wants to do courses on business and business ethics, that would be a fantastic collaboration for us to talk about.
Well, they are in fact working on developing a course at the moment just within EBBF, because they recognize the need, for that kind of training. Of course, IEF has already been behind helping you to launch 2 or 3 courses within our institutes. You've already been our educational outreach for the IEF.
Indeed, indeed. With sustainable development, and with climate change, and now with the agriculture and food course, and with Paul Hanley's book on 11, which we're doing a course on in November. We're really quite excited to be working with International Environment Forum that way. And with the Office of Public Affairs of the National Spiritual Assembly, they've been directing us in courses that they need in order to continue to develop Baha'i community resources.
Hi, Rob. This is Wendy. Can you hear me now?
Wendy. I can hear you, yes.
Okay. Sorry, we're having some problems. Isn't Mujan's course on history the other one? That's the degree.
Mujan was on last time.
No, isn't it the degree course that you were looking for?
What course?
The degree, the 4-credit course. You were looking for the 6th one.
I can't hear you very well.
Isn't it the Mujan's course on the 6th?
One of the things that people have been commenting is you and Mujan need to get a new microphone.
Yeah, we do. Never mind.
I can't hear you at all, I'm afraid.
Well, she was suggesting there was one of Mujan's courses were the one you were looking for in the 6 courses.
Right, I heard that part and never heard the rest, unfortunately. I don't remember, but if I had time, I could look it up. I can certainly send that out to everybody afterwards if you're curious. What other questions do people have, and other ideas and comments do people have?
Can't hear through this
I see
microphone.
Trip is on the phone. I'm going to turn on his microphone. Now, Trip, you can turn yours off, but now that I've turned it on, at least you can turn it on. Before you wouldn't have been able to.
Just leave it, Mujan.
I think I already turned on Christine's at one point. Oh, yeah, it's on. Okay.
It's gone out of the thing.
Is that Wendy? If I could figure out quickly, people are curious about that other course, I can probably find it.
Wendy, you could also just type it in.
That's true, Christine. Thanks for that suggestion. I may be able to find it. File. Open.
I have a question, stems from complete ignorance. This is Saveda. On ISGP, does it have, is it sort of a silo that's separate? It's just targets Baha'i youth going through college and postgraduate. I've never been able or allowed to see any of the materials that they use, so I understand very little about what it does. I tried to sign up a couple of times and they told me I was too old to do that, and nobody's willing to share material. So how does it relate to what the rest of the world is doing, to what you're doing in the Wilmette Institute, to what ABS is doing, and to what others are doing? It's sort of like this big black box, which I find fascinating but know nothing about.
We find it fascinating and know nothing about it also.
Oh, really? Okay.
By and large,
I don't feel alone.
Yeah, Baha'i history, you're right. Wendy's right. Baha'i history, 1844 to the present, is the other one. Yeah, I've just highlighted the 6th there in the articulation agreement. You can keep them there. Comprehensive introduction, Baha'i history, Baha'u'llah's revelation, Baha'i theology, Baha'i administration, community building, individual, and Baha'i approach to social issues, which is our Baha'i faith and social change. So those are the well, we really are not in touch with the ISGP people, and so we really are not terribly familiar with what they're doing. So we wish them the best, of course, and are delighted to do what we're doing, and I think it's presumably complementary to what the ISGP is doing as well.
Can you hear me, Rob? It's Wendy.
I can hear you, Wendy.
Yeah. Thanks. I mean, as a member of the NSA, we are very much in touch with the ISGP. A lot of the things that are in the social change.
Hi, honey. How are you doing?
Part of the ISGP courses.
Is there anything I can do?
That sounds like Sandra cutting in there.
Sorry. I'm just I didn't think you could hear me. Sorry about that.
Turn off your microphone, Sandra.
Okay.
I turn it off. You won't be able to turn it back on, but if you turn it off, turn it back
I'll
on.
do that. Sorry, Rob. I just I got it here. That's fine.
Unfortunately, Wendy, you faded out again. Yet we heard your first 3 or 4 words, and then it was impossible to hear the rest.
Okay, never mind.
As Christine said, if you want to type it, we may be able to do it that way.
I can't type it either. It's not allowing me to type.
You can't type it either. Okay.
Although we can hear you now. I've just started being able to hear Wendy.
Yeah, it was a little clearer there.
Well, you're fading out for me, Rob, as well.
Okay. Yeah, I know you guys don't have a great internet connection in your village, unfortunately, either.
No, and also it crashed my laptop getting onto this, so I changed computers.
Yeah. What other questions do people have? Input, suggestions do they have? We're getting near the end of the hour, and I don't want to hold people up too long.
The other one I want to do is human rights.
Good. We'd love to have a course on human rights. We tried to organize one on the persecution of the Baha'is in Iran, and that didn't work so well. But maybe a different combination of people would have been more effective.
If we want to use the Zoom through the Wilmette Institute, what do we have to do?
Right, Nikki and me will give you the username and password and a little bit of training. I've never used Zoom before, so I don't know how to use it either, but I gather it's very easy.
Well, we used it before for our course to communicate among faculty and among course participants, and it was great. But when you have a group setting, it's only 40 minutes. If we can do it through the Wilmette Institute, we can have like an hour meeting.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the free version of Zoom was limited to 40 minutes, but we're now paying $17 a month, so we have a subscription, and that means we can use it for as long as we want. I think for up to 25 people, and you can record it as well. With GoToWebinar and GoToMeeting is restricted to 25, and if you record it, you can't record the audio, but you can record the video, or the other way around. I can't remember. With GoToWebinar, you can have up to 100 people, and you record the audio and the video and the screen without any trouble. But you can't run GoToWebinar and GoToMeeting at the same time. So what we're asking people to do is to just use GoToWebinar and then use Zoom if GoToWebinar is not available. That way we don't have to worry about people having something that has to happen at a certain time on GoToWebinar, but they can't use it because someone else is using GoToMeeting at the same time. So
can I just say there's a new page, Faculty News and Training, on the Faculty tab on the Wilmette Institute's public website. We've posted some things there, including a PDF of a slideshow I prepared to show people how to use the GoToWebinar. So all you need is to have a look at that. You can then email, as Rob said, Rob or myself. I'm at the wi@usbnc.org email address. And give me your phone number so that I can send you the password. We don't want to send it over the email. So just write to us.
Who's talking right now? So we know who.
Daniel, sorry.
She's faculty and staff.
Thank you.
And as you can see, Tripp just asked this question. I don't know. I tried turning Tripp's phone on, and maybe I wasn't able to completely.
Rob, Tripp, can you hear me now?
I just turned your phone on. Yeah, you're asking about self-paced courses here.
Yeah, I really plan for self-paced courses.
We are trying self-paced courses right now in the marriage area, and one of the problems is if you set a self-paced course up so that people can start at any time during the entire year, you might only have one person at a time, and the faculty may not know how to interact with them. Of course, if it's self-paced, maybe they don't need to interact with the faculty. We're willing to give that a try and see how it works.
Okay.
The software, there's some limitations. One of the things Nikki noticed was, for example, maybe it wasn't Nikki. When we launch a course in Cvent, which is a registration system, it has to have a date when the course begins. And if you set up the course so it can run for an entire year, it's still listed as beginning on May 1st. So you may get a notice that the course started on May 1st, but you're now starting it in October, which is a little confusing. So there's a little bit of problems like that.
Okay.
There may be ways of fixing that through CVent, and we may be switching away from CVent in the next year to a different registration system anyway. I don't know.
Okay, and just one other question. Are you basing what you're doing on the available courses or on the desired courses? In other words, are you setting a structure for the courses you want to offer in the future, or are you taking the courses that people are able to teach now and putting those into those groupings?
I'd say both. Well, obviously, right now we have to design for what we have, but we have to design also for what we can have. And the numbering system, for example, for courses is set up so that we can accommodate a lot more courses than we offer now. So I've tried to design the numbering system so there's a lot of unused numbers that we can then assign later on as we need them. And similarly, the departmental structure, if we have more and more people teaching more and more courses, we can create more and more departments. We can start out with sections and split them and move some sections up to different departments and that sort of thing. So the idea is to create a structure that is adequate for today, but is flexible enough to accommodate growth.
Okay.
We have growth.
That's great.
You know, but we want to design for it to the extent we can, and obviously, as you can see, I had originally suggested 7 departments, and then everybody else said no, go to 4, and now, as Sandra points out, maybe 4 isn't practical either. So we have to really work this through and figure it out. It's a tough nut to crack, and I don't think there's a simple set of answers either. We just simply have to keep experimenting and seeing what will work best for the people we have at any particular time.
Okay, great.
What else? What else do people have? What other questions do people have? I'm looking to see if there's anything under questions here.
A question from a previous talk or meeting, the timeline. How are you deciding who is a department head, and can people nominate themselves?
People can propose themselves, and I'm hoping I'll have several different people for each department whom I can talk to, and we can work through what arrangement might be best. I'd like to try and have department chairs appointed, let's say, in the next 2 months or so. And right now I do have 1 or 2 people, but I don't have anybody for some areas, so I'm still in need of nominations or suggestions. If someone thinks, I think this other person should be chair, please let me know. If you want yourself to be proposed, please let me know, because I need to hear, one, who's interested. I don't even know who's interested in being chair. And I need input. I need that input. So definitely contact me and we'll just go from there.
I was thinking about substructures as well within departments, because you will have some people, for instance, who are more familiar with the software and are better at various things. It could be a liaison, for instance, with the admin, can be the Moodle person, the go-to person, can be the webinar go-to person. So to kind of take the strain off of yourself, you know, we now have like 2 or 3 webinars a week, a month. Right. And you've really been doing all of them, you know. Right. And I don't have someone who can do that.
I don't have to do them all. In fact, I'm hoping that if we start doing public discourse webinars where we have non-Baha'i speakers, we would have their Baha'i friend who put them in touch with us to be the host for their particular talk, and then we would all sit back and enjoy it and watch it, and it would be available on YouTube for everyone else as well. Right. There's enormous potential for us to invite non-Baha'i speakers to talk about Baha'i subjects with a Baha'i providing a Baha'i perspective at the same time. It's like 2 people basically.
I'm envisioning social media as well. We could have a Facebook page for each department, you know.
Yep.
So
Yep, and that has a lot to do with what the departments want, because some people in departments will say, well, I don't ever use Facebook, so maybe it's of no use to them, but in other departments it might be fantastic. So we need to be flexible and accommodate these possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone, I'm trying to tell Sandra, are you unmuted? Are you having trouble?
Are you?
Oh, I can.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I'm unmuted and now I'm muted.
Well, now you're unmuted because we can hear you. But yes, that's good that you can unmute yourself. That's why, because I saw you in the section under questions, you had asked for me to unmute you, and I wanted to make sure. See, if I unmute people, then they can mute themselves and then unmute themselves. But until I do that, they can't speak.
I'm muting and unmuting, but unfortunately, I'm unmuting when you are not listening and muting when you. So, but I am manipulating the microphone.
Good, excellent. Okay. Anybody have any other questions or comments? Since we're running a little long, and I don't want to cut this off too soon, but I also don't want to take too much of people's time.
Thank you very much, Robert. That was very informative, and we all appreciate everything you're doing for the Wilmette Institute.
Thank you. Thank you. I really am very, very grateful for our faculty who really are devoting a lot of time, helping a lot of students. I know it's something a lot of you really enjoy too, and I'm even happier to see that you're able to express something that you want to do in this particular medium of the Wilmette Institute, and I'm really grateful for all of the efforts people are putting in, the sacrifice and the time and the love, and I look forward to continue working with all of you. I really do.
Very exciting.
Thank you.
The larger picture.
Larger picture, what?
It's very exciting to see the larger picture here.
Yeah.
I feel like I've suddenly, the whole vision is blown open for me of what this is I'm involved in. And I see that there's a very large and possibly accredited institution before us here.
Yeah, I think eventually we have the possibility of becoming some sort of a university. But like I said, right now the House of Justice doesn't want accredited majors or programs in Baha'i studies. So what we need to do is to provide accreditable courses that can be fit into other people's programs so that Baha'is can study peace studies through a university and take a course on the faith. They can study economics at a university and take a course on the faith. They can study environmental science at a university and take a course on the faith. And that is I think, is the role we are going to play for the foreseeable future. But that potentially can be a very, very big role if we can figure out how to do that and continuously improve the quality of it and the scale of it, and inform the Baha'i community about it so they're more aware of what we can provide. And when you think about it, there's a huge potential there for service to the faith and to humanity.
I think it's a credit by credit process, you know, and I think this is what is happening in the BIHE right now as well. And it's approaching a university and getting some kind of acknowledgement course by course.
Yep. Yep. And to do that, we also have to have people who want to take the courses. And right now, the Baha'i students don't even know about our courses and are not even trying to take them. And they're not making the effort to try and obtain credit. We need to make it clearer to them that this is something they can do, and it's, you know, good for the faith if they do it, and good for them if they do it. So,
Rob, this is Jean Parker, and I just want to recognize and acknowledge all the work that's taken place, particularly of late in this current expansion. This is really, really admirable, and I think all of us appreciate very much the amount of attention to this reconstruction that's taken place. It's very well done, and thank you.
Thank you, Jean, and thank you for joining the faculty. Jean hasn't even taught a course yet, but we're looking forward to having you involved in economics, Jean, and I really thank you for being interested and becoming involved so quickly.
You're very welcome, and I am very much looking forward to it.
Good. Thank you. Anything else, anybody? Are we pretty much
Thank you,
finished?
Rob.
Thank you, Christine. And I think if we're done, I will bid everyone adieu and turn off our connection, and suddenly we'll all be gone. We won't. There is
Okay.
no.
Okay, thank you.
Slowly,
No Persian goodbyes.
No, closes is closed. First,
Bye, everybody.
How about
Bye.
just
Bye-bye.
Alawapa?
everybody. And see you all online. I'll put it that way.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Oops, I got to click here. Here we go. End webinar. Yes.